Purple Photography here, and welcome back to another Friday video. And this week we are doing another top 10 tips on what to avoid when you're a beginner photographer. So I'm just going to go through some of the most common mistakes that beginners tend to do when they're first starting out. And it's a little bit embarrassing because I sometimes still do these mistakes as well. They are really common, and don't worry about it if you are guilty of doing some of these, but this video will just help you to avoid these mistakes and improve your work. Okay, so my top tip number one is don't get too snappy happy. So when you're out and about and you've just got your new flashy new camera, you do realise that you have a lot of memory on there and you can fit quite a lot of images on. So when you go out and do a shoot, my advice to you is don't take thousands and thousands of frames, just go think about what you're actually photographing, think about how you're positioning it and things like that. We'll cover that in some of those things a little bit later on in this video. But the problem is with being snappy happy is when you get home, you're sorting through all your files, you'll realise you've got thousands and thousands of frames to sort through, and you need to just pick one good one, and that is going to take ages. So if you really refine your work and just take maybe a couple of hundred, then it's so much easier to pick just one final frame, and it'll make your life so much easier and definitely improve your skills as a photographer overall. So top tip number two is avoiding altering the camera settings when you're out and about on location. So you're on location, it's a bright sunny day, and you're just snapping away for your photographs, but then the sun goes in behind a cloud and you've not altered your exposure. You could potentially be losing a final shot if you do not look and change your camera settings. I know I'm sometimes still guilty of this. You get too caught up in the moment, but it's really important you try to avoid this, as it proves your skills technically as well. So I just include a contact sheet there. This is a shoot I did a couple of weeks ago, and you can see that I potentially lost a couple of frames because of overexposure, because the sun came out from behind a cloud and really overexposed some of my shots, and I was quite annoyed because there was a really good one in there that I could have potentially used as one of my final images. So my advice to you is always check your camera settings. So when you look through the viewfinder, you will see a little bar that is your exposure, and most cameras just come with a little dial at the top of near the shutter button. You just spin that around until the bar is in the middle, and that's how you know you have a perfect exposure. So just keep checking that as you continue photographing your subject, as you will have technically good and perfectly exposed images. So top tip number three is making sure that things that are sharp. So you've been using the camera for quite a while and you want to move away from the automatic settings, including focus. So you want to switch to manual focus, but you need to make sure that you can see perfectly through the viewfinder. So there is, on most DSLRs, they come with a little dial that improves the picture through the viewfinder depending on your eyesight. So if you have eyes like me, when I'm not wearing my contact lenses, I have short distance vision, so I can't see things far away. So I need to have it on a certain setting to make sure that I can see through the viewfinder, because otherwise, if I'm doing a manual focus image, I might think it's in focus, but when I get home, load it onto the PC or the computer, it looks completely out of focus. And I know a lot of beginner photographers still do this. So if you want to avoid things not being sharp in your images, stick to automatic focus, or if you really want to try out manual, then just be really careful that you can actually see, and just make sure that the image is crisp and sharp before you take the final image. So top tip number four is not playing around with composition. So a lot of photographers, for some reason, tend to be under the impression that everything needs to be tucked in the middle and straight on, when this is not the case at all. So not experimenting with composition means your photography will not progress to a better level if you don't experiment with your composition. So there are a lot of compositional rules out there that you could try out, including the golden circle, the rule of thirds. Talk about those in more depth in a different video, but just to give you a few examples, I'll put a few examples on here of different ways that you can change up your composition style, and this will really improve your photography in the long run, as like if you want to get into professionally, then your clients can see a variety of different styles that you may develop over time. So I try to take images, composition. So composition is really important to me because I'm a little bit OCD about my images, so I could spend like 1 to 2 minutes just trying to frame up the shot before I even take the damn thing, because I'm trying to frame it up correctly. So just really think about your composition and don't just make the mistake of taking it straight on with your subject in the middle, as you just won't improve in the long run. So top tip number 5 is avoid over editing. Now a lot of beginners are really guilty of this, not in the sense of just really crap Photoshop, but when you first discover photo image editing software, a lot of photographers tend to over edit their images and make they want the colours to pop, and what tends to happen is they really oversaturate their images and make the colours really unrealistic. So that's just another thing to avoid. I know if you take a picture of a lovely meadow or the beach and you really want the water to become blue, just avoid oversaturating your colours or being over vibrant with them, because this will really damage the quality of the image, and people will just think that it's just so unrealistic and they won't take you seriously as a photographer. So that's just another thing to avoid, is over editing just simple things as colour. So top tip number 6 is not even having a subject. So when you first start out, you just want to go out and take pictures of everything. But another thing to avoid is not having a one subject in your image. So if you go out and take pictures of like a marketplace or things where people are really busy, maybe try to have a focus point. So if you're just taking pictures of just everything inside, your images will not have one particular subject that people can focus on, because what people look for in a good photograph is a focus point that their eye will go to straight away. So it's really important that your image actually has a subject and you're not just doing an overall thing with your image. Even landscape photography has a certain viewpoint that people look at straight away. So yeah, just try to avoid not having a subject in your images. So top tip number 7 is not looking behind the subject. So when you actually have a subject in your image and you place them in front of a background, if you don't pay attention to what that background actually is, it could ruin the entire image, even if the subject is a really good looking model. If you put her in the wrong environment, then it will ruin the entire shot and you could potentially ruin the entire shoot. So location is really important when it comes to taking photographs. So if you just place them in front of a dustbin in an alleyway, yes, this could look really interesting depending on the aesthetic of your image, but at the same time it could just ruin your entire photograph. So just be really careful of checking what is behind your subject when you photograph them, as although if you've got a really shallow depth of field and the background is blurred out anyway, it still doesn't matter, as people can still see it. Although the subject is in focus and people's eye will go to that straight away, if you've got a really shoddy background then it will still ruin the entire image. So just be really careful of that. So top tip number 8 is using flash incorrectly. So this is something to avoid. So if you're in a really dark room and you can't get the right exposure for your image, do not just use flash as a substitute, because you will really drown out your subject and they will just look completely orange. As most onboard flashes in cameras just have an orange bulb in them, and this can really just drown out your subject and it'll just make it look nasty if you don't use fill-in flash correctly. So there are more professional flashes you can get for your camera, including flash guns or location kit studio lighting. So if you really want to use flash, then you have to learn how to use it correctly. So I'll just put some don'ts right there, just so you can see what to avoid in the future. And if your images look like any of those, then you know you've done something wrong. So top tip number 9 is to avoid always shooting in JPEG. Now a lot of, I'm guilty of this myself, so the first 3 years of my photography education I shot everything in JPEG, and it ruined some potentially really good images. Now the advantage of shooting in camera raw is that the image it's not compressed, so when you go to edit it, then you can, if you do something wrong, you can always strip that back and still have the original file. But once you edit a JPEG, then that JPEG is ruined, and you can't undo any of your mistakes. Although camera raw files tend to be quite large, and some computer formats don't read them, so you need specialised software to read camera raw files. Although it's really annoying, it will really improve your photography in the long run, as they're just the raw file with so much better quality, and you can get a lot more quality out of the image rather than just using a compressed JPEG file. That's one thing to avoid. And top tip number 10, and this is probably the worst, and another thing I'm really guilty of myself, is not backing up your work. Now this is really important, as if you just store all your work in one place and don't back it up, if anything happens to that work, then that is it. It is gone. There is no saving it. So I really stupidly used to save everything on one memory stick. I didn't even have a hard drive. I didn't back it up on any memory cards or everything. As soon as I've done a shoot, it will go on this one memory stick, and it was deleted off the memory card, and that was it. Those were the only copies of those files I had. And one day I ejected it from a Mac without, I took it out of a Mac without ejecting it properly, and I went to go put it back in, and every single file on that memory stick had corrupted, and that was probably, I'd lost nearly a year's amount of work, and that was so heart crushing for me, because that was more or less an entire college project down the drain, and I had to reshoot everything. So don't be stupid and back up your files in 2 or 3 other places, as it'll just make you feel so much better. I know they take up a lot of space, but you will really feel the benefits in the long run, as if anything happens to one, then you always have a backup, just in case. So don't be as stupid as me. So yeah, that is it this week, guys. I hope you found that informative, and these tips help you to avoid these mistakes if you are first starting out. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed that, and please don't forget to subscribe if you like this video and want to see next week's first, and give this video a thumbs up, as it really helps me and gets this video across to more viewers, potential viewers. And with that, I will see you for next week's video. Bye!